Faith Forged in Fire, where we dive headfirst into the unique challenges and triumphs that comes with being a firefighter, all while exploring what it means to live out a biblical worldview. Join us as we find hope, perseverance, and faith in the midst of the heat and chaos. Welcome to the podcast.
Welcome to the podcast.
Welcome
Is this
back.
like the last Friday of May? Is that what
Oh,
I'm thinking?
man.
It's
Yeah.
been such a long...
See if my camera can make it through the month.
Yeah.
It died last week.
Yeah,
Hey,
Yeah.
the birds are singing.
Got too hot
Sun
and-
is
yeah.
shining.
yeah. That's
Hopefully
right.
it makes it.
So tonight we're going to go over the consequences of no accountability.
Yeah.
So,
Can I tell you where I stole this idea from another podcast?
repent.
Yeah.
I said that for you, Jake.
Yeah, right. It just and of course may not have the exact same. We're not going to have the same conversation they did, but they brought up this idea. They worded it this way: "Am I my brother's keeper?" I thought that was really cool. There's a lot of struggle with whether or not we should have not that whether or not, but how accountability works on the fireground. But that kind of pours over into our daily life.
Absolutely.
So.
Yes, sir. Because it accounts for accountability even after we're off the scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like I know that you care for the guys. You might not even be the accountability officer or have anything to do with it, but you're accountable to those guys after.
Yeah.
You help take care of them. You look
Right.
after them, make sure that they're okay.
Right.
Non-fire related, and you are also trying to hold yourself accountable for their spiritual side of things too,
Yeah.
which makes it a full-time job for you. You know, because some of us don't. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Steve, what are you thinking?
I was thinking to myself that how could you not be if you saw someone, you know, I guess, you know, you talk about accountability. I always think of like you know, when I saw that video, you ever said video about like, you know, Penn and Teller, Penn Gillette, you know, and he talks about like the guy that's sharing the gospel and you know, you see a guy that's walking on a train track and he can't hear the train coming. At what point you just grab the guy and throw him off the train so he doesn't get hit, right? And I always think of that with people is that if you see someone proverbially that it's on that train track that they can't hear the train coming, what kind of guy are you just to let the train just hit them? You know what I mean? At what point do you say, whether I know you or not or whatever, why would I allow you to crash and burn when I see something that you're not seeing right now? And again, whether...
So let me tell you, you keep that thought because I'm going to tell you a fire story where that actually happened to me not long ago, and from someone who listens to the podcast every week. But we were on a fire scene, got my mask on, got it, you know, it's smoky, and last episode we've talked about pouring into and training people, right? Even and this is where that in some ways paid off. Okay, now he got training other places, but when he was new, one of the things I try to teach him was what you taught me years ago. When you're new and you can't do anything, you can have seen size up and seen safety and see things that not everybody else does.
Right.
And then that transferred. So as I was teaching him, then that transferred into when you're the guy backing somebody up on the line, he's got his eyes on the fire. You get your eyes, you be his eyes, you know,
Right.
Not that you're taking away his responsibility. So he's backing me up and I hear something about there's a wire hanging right there. Okay. Whatever. Keep going. Whatever, got it, right? Keep going. And he keeps getting louder and louder. But for whatever reason, I'm focused on the fire. I think I got this thing, like, yeah, there's a wire hanging. There's a live wire. And he's like, live wire. Pretty soon I feel this hand, like, just grab me and yank me. And as he does, passing in front of my mask by a couple of inches is this live wire hanging down that I was walking into. And he was doing his job.
Right.
And it got to the point where he just was like, you dummy, and grabbed me, you know. So, anyways, I just thought that, like, as you're telling that story, or you're talking about a train, like that literally has happened to me on the fire ground. Somebody said,
Right.
"You're not going to listen to me. I'm going to physically move you so you don't get
Get your
hurt."
attention.
And then the accountability, it doesn't have to be a life or death. It could be something, less. But, what could be something that could be damaging to your family? What are you looking at on the computer where you're like, listen, dude, this is going to hurt your marriage or whatever. Talking, to this girl you shouldn't be, you're getting too flirtatious here, whatever, right? It doesn't have to be, but it could be something that could affect your life and affect the lives around you, right? And sometimes, you don't want to be, you're not here to be dad, that's not your role, right? But as an accountability person, you're saying,
Well, so here's sorry,
No,
but I got a question, and Rich is running this thing, and so I don't want to take it away from him either. But
he likes it when we.
So I'm thinking this through, watching this experience, what you're saying. So on a fire ground, we have no problem grabbing our brother or our sister we're fighting fire with, right, and moving them away from danger. When we get in the firehouse and we see them doing something they shouldn't, what's usually the attitude?
Sit back and watch.
I'm not here to get in anybody's business. When maybe a simple, like you said, like, hey man.
Well, but here's the deal. I think there are definitely certain things that we can do that maybe we don't realize the harm it eventually could cause. Because remember, some of those things start out very simple, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Let's be realistic. Like someone that has like a porn addiction, for example. It just starts out by, I just look at this, look at these naked girls every once in a great while, and it's no big deal. I just look at a naked girl, and then it turns into more and more and more. Until now it becomes a problem. Or even if it's like a drinking thing, or so, I just drink every once in a while. And now all of a sudden it becomes now more often, and now it becomes you're an alcoholic.
Right.
Sometimes there's these things that maybe there's not really the intention of taking it too far, but it just ends up going that way. Right. And then, if you can have a guy that can say, hey, dude, I say this out of, and I say this too, because again, obviously it's the way that we are accountable to people too, and how we handle it, right? Instead of the shaking the finger, but just more putting an arm around a guy and going, hey, I just say this because I care about you. And this may be going down a bad road. Right. So I think that also takes into effect too. But again, I don't think always some people, they just get involved in situations, they don't realize what the ramifications. Now, some guys do, right? There's, again, you're at the firehouse and some guys really are just wanting to do things they shouldn't do and they don't really care. And then again, nothing you can do about that. You can tell them all day long and then you're the bad guy for telling them, But at least you did, though, I guess, in a way too. Like, hey, I did my job. I tried, at least I said something.
Well, yeah, and like at the fire department, you've got your trainer, your coach, whoever is over you, kind of helping you keep yourself accountable for your trainings and all of that stuff. But like in the church, you've got your disciple, PJ drew the short straw, and he holds me accountable. You keep on the right track. We talk all the time, and he's not afraid to go like, you better get your tires realigned because I think you're drifting a little here or there. But
what's cool is you respect him, that when he says that, you're like, you know what, he's right. And I appreciate that, and he does it out of love. Right. He's not doing it to be, mean and cruel. He's just saying, I'm seeing something maybe you're not seeing right now. I think you're getting a little squirrely, and I just want to get you back on track here.
That reminds me, we got to have a little talk after this.
Wow, it's gonna be a late night.
All right, so
no, but I think we all have a responsibility to the people around us. Again, I think about that. Like, what kind of anger, hate in your heart do you have to watch somebody crash and burn and be okay with that?
Yeah.
You really have to. And unfortunately, we live in a world where there's a lot of people that. I'm sure some of the things that I went through over my years where I crashed and burned, people saw it, just didn't really care. Like, oh, well,
So here's a question for you.
I don't know. Yeah.
You're talking more of a physical beating by the train kind of deal. Mm-hmm. You see somebody going down the wrong path physically, whatever. What about spiritually?
Well, that's another one. Yeah.
You know, people are so, PJs won't think, well, and I shouldn't pick on you because I know the answer to both of them, but the average person, if a guy is in a house fire, that guy's going to do whatever he can do to make sure you're safe.
Mm-hmm.
But now let's take the turnout gear off and let's go outside into the spiritual world. Now what happens if PJ starts getting in a little bit of a trouble? Would that guy that was the second person on the hose put that much effort into it? I mean, because it could take a lot of effort. If he would have hit that live wire, and I know who he's talking about, the rookie, could have drug him out of there, and it would have been an effort. And 5 minutes later, PJ would have been to safety. But now let's say it's two other people, and this guy is kind of going down the wrong path. Would that guy still take the same energy and the same, I don't know, love, urgency, those things, to look out for that person's spiritual life, not just their physical life, but their spiritual life?
Well, I think first off, the person that's looking out has to care spiritually, right? They have to be in a good spot spiritually, right?
True.
Because if you're not, then either it's not, you don't make it a big deal when it should be a big deal, or you're like, whatever. But like, yeah, if you're someone that's strong in your faith, absolutely. If you see something going on, you need to have that kind. And again, you do it in love. I had something that happened to me a long time ago, and I remember this story because it was interesting because I didn't realize technically I was doing something wrong, but the way this guy addressed it with me, and I'll never forget, it was probably the first time ever in my spiritual journey that a guy addressed something with me, but he did it in such a way where it really made an impact on me. And when I was in Arizona, when I was early on in my days of faith, it took a while for me to become the guy that I am today because there's just so much I didn't really know or understand or realize. And one of the things was I was dating a gal. I dated a gal for a number of years before my wife. And I used to go on trips with this gal every once in a while. We go somewhere in like around the state of Arizona or whatever. And I remember talking about it in front of this one brother at the church. And he goes, hey man, he goes, and I just, and he was really casual and whatever, but he was like, I don't know if like you maybe, I'm not sure if going on trips with this, like, I don't know if that's a safe thing to do. And what's funny is I never realized it. And when he said that, I'm like, oh my goodness, like he's right. Like it just all of a sudden it clicked. But the way he did it though was he did it in such love. Mm-hmm. He wasn't sitting there beating me over the head like I'm better than you or anything. He was just literally saying, I'm seeing something here that maybe you're not seeing. And I think there could be a problem. This could lead you down a road that's not good. And he was completely right. And I remember after that, I was like, we can't do this anymore. Like he's right. He's right. And so I really appreciated that because he cared enough spiritually. He knew and understood, but he cared enough to speak to me, and he did it in such a way where it made an impact. And I remember that story to this day because it's just the way he handled it. So yeah, I think if we spiritually are strong in our faith and we see something, that we can always have that conversation in love where, and even if something maybe combats you at the moment, they'll walk away thinking about it going, now the more I think about it, I think he was right on that. I've had that happen to me before too, where I've said something, I felt led to say something, and then someone came back later and go, I was thinking about what you said, and so, yeah, I think without a doubt we have, and I think as Christians we have a responsibility as Christians to those people around us, especially like the other believers that may or may not know, that we really do have an obligation to lovingly correct something that we see.
I think we need to be ready for the what do you call it, the not the backfire, that's not the word I'm looking for, but the pushback that we might get too.
Sure.
When you said that, that's what made me think of that. You said, they came back later and said, you're right. In the moment, they might not be.
Sure.
I was just thinking about trying to, tying this in to a situation, doing an after action report, listening in on an after action report for a fire at the full-time department, and the battalion chief saw something from the outside, pulled everybody out, and they were upset. Well, they once they had a conversation about it in the after action report, they realized they weren't seeing the same things, and he was doing it because he cared. Mm-hmm. And just the point of that is then everybody calmed down and was like, yeah, he had my best interest. And it's sometimes, even no matter how lovingly we do it, they're not going to want to hear that.
Sure.
And
Sure,
so
of
we have
course.
to be ready for that. The other thing I was thinking about, you know, as my challenge, I guess, is the better relationship you have with that person, the more you're going to be able to have an impact with that person. Like with Rich. Rich says, well, you know,
Sure.
if PJ says he sees something, then I listen. But that's because he knows the amount of that we've invested like together. I've spent a lot of time. I'm not just gonna tell Rich something because I feel like I'm better than him by any means. There's a relationship built there. Hebrews 10 says this in verse 24. It says, "Let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works." And the idea of when he says consider, it's the idea of studying. It's to be done out of intentional love. So even in the firehouse, you say, "Well, I see these guys doing things they shouldn't be doing," and you can't just call them out because they're going to be like, "Well, who are you to do that?" Even in the guy you talked about, you said what struck me was how he did it. He didn't act like he was better than me. Mm-hmm. And the more we get to know somebody, the more we've built that relationship, the more they're apt to listen to you when you say, "Hey, man, I think there's, you know, this doesn't sit right. This isn't.
Yeah. Well, and
I don't think you're seeing this right."
Yeah, and I think you know, when people have a respect for who you are and they respect you as a person because of your actions and whatever, they look at that like that what you say carries some meaning versus a guy that they don't respect, right? Because you can have someone that may have your best interest, but you have no respect for the person. You're like, whatever, you know, take a hike, right? But if you have a respect for an individual, it's like, wow, that's really cool. And I remember that one telling about that when I was at back in Arizona. I went back to school and I got my degree and I went to Grand Canyon University and I used to go to these night classes and stuff. And everybody in the class knew my faith. And I'll never forget one time someone accidentally swore in class and they go, "Sorry, Steve." Like that. I don't know why I wasn't looking for it, but it was that respect that they had of my faith that they said, "Hey, I made a mistake. I swore in front of it. I know Steve's a Christian guy. You know, I like Steve, whatever." And, you know, it meant a lot. Like, even though I didn't need that, but it was just cool. So you have people have a respect. They'll listen to those things or it'll carry some weight.
PJ's never had that happen to him, has he?
Right. Never.
What's that?
All the time. People apologizing when they don't need to for swearing in front of me or whatever. I never
Like
say
he
anything.
walks into the firehouse and the conversation changes.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
But see, there it falls back on accountability now instead of when we weren't holding ourselves accountable. Now
Right.
PJ walks in the door and go like, "Yeah, we know better to be talking that way, but now we're going to hold ourselves accountable for how we're acting."
Yeah, I don't
So-
even. Sometimes it's just the presence of somebody different
Yep.
that. Yeah. So here's a thought that I just had as we're talking about this and thinking through all of this. We all often will say that, you know, we might be as messed up as whatever, you know, we're firefighters are messed up. We have disagreements. We have whatever. As soon as the tones go off and we head off, we put all that aside and we focus. But we all know we're human. Mm-hmm. And when that guy in the fire service gets all messed up because he went down this road and now his life is a mess, he is not going to be 100% on the fire ground. Mm-hmm. So my partner now is not 100%. Have we ever really thought about it from the side of, I actually am thinking about my safety and his safety on the fire ground?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm trying to help him now to stay in the right headspace, for lack of a better term. I mean, we know it's deeper than that. It's spiritual. It's you know, a battle with the world, all those things. But from that simple space of, if I can, maybe I see him flirting with you know, somebody at the restaurant, and I say, "Hey, man, you know, that could mess up your relationship with your wife." What, you know, as you said, you kind of call that out, and it's over with. Instead of, I let that go. Now, next thing you know, I'm trying to fight a fire with a guy that's in the middle of a divorce. He's losing his kids. He's losing his home, and now I'm expecting him to to be fully focused on. I don't think so.
Right.
So even thinking about it from that, I'm like, hey man, I'm trying to just keep this crew so that we're focused, and what you're doing is not going to help that. So I think that might be another aspect for us to think through.
Yeah. Wow, that's true. Yeah, the safety of not just them, but yourself. Or even too is them dragging you down their roads, even if it's the not,
Right,
the whole
right.
thing. Like, hey man, let's go meet, let's go to the bar tonight, meet a couple girls or whatever. And you're like, and again, you get wrapped up in some of that stuff because you want to be one of the boys and want to hang out, and then all of a sudden you start getting dragged down these goofy roads, and and then you don't want to not partake because then you're the nerdy guy or you're the outcast, of the firehouse, right? But at the same time, you want to fit in, right?
Peer pressure.
So I guess I could see where that could be.
Well, and
kind of
that
an issue as well.
that I think is another great point, Steve, is there needs to be some accountability outside of the firehouse. In that, a guy from church, go find a good church and find somebody at church that's gonna not just hold you accountable, but teach you. In that you go, okay, you know what? The other night we were out and I didn't want to be the outsider. I was put in this tough spot. What do you think I should do? Because you're also protecting yourself, right? We think about accountability often as this like slap on the wrist kind of thing. Instead of, it's just as much teaching so that you respond correctly in that time. So now you go to somebody and go, how I really found myself in a tough spot. How should I have done that? No different than we do on the fire ground, man. I found myself in a spot. You go to the seasoned guy that's been there, done that, and you go, how have you dealt with this extrication or that fire or that, and they go, well, here's the experience that I've walked through. And they can take you to scripture and they can help you, in the life thing. So it's both. It's not just having the accountability within your crew, but we also need to make sure that we've got good godly accountability that's going to keep us safe as well.
I was just thinking about it, Rich. Like you being at the firehouse. Do you teach anything like to the members? Like do you do anything to keep guys accountable for each other? Do you have anything that you personally do? Like I don't know, like to have the guys watch out for each other in a way or whatever. Is there anything you?
I think everybody does to a point. I've not had anybody to a point other than once somebody come and bring some concerns to me.
Sure.
And kind of go like, what are you thinking? Where do you think we should go with this? How do you think I should handle this? And they were all really good questions because I'd never been in that position either. So it was brought up to me, and if I remember correctly, I brought it to PJ.
Yeah.
I think we sat down and talked about it.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think is the best way for him, a path to go down? Because he was going down a path that he shouldn't go down.
Right.
Okay.
And we kind of talked about it, and then I just fed that back to, the friend that was,
Yeah.
the friend that was closer to the
Back down the chain of command.
It kind of hard. It was one guy talking to another guy, talking to me, talking to PJ. So, so there's another example of, one guy was coming to me for advice, and I'm like, ooh, I don't know. This is pretty important. I don't want to give you just I gave him my ideas, but I also, holding myself accountable to make sure that I'm doing the best I can to get the right information. So I came to PJ, and he kind of gave me some ideas, and I passed them on down.
I was just thinking like when you have like training nights where everybody's there, where you just kind of talk like, hey guys, we got to watch out for each other here, and know that as like, hey, I'm the chief, I can't be here all the time, but we gotta, it's kind of like that. It's always that motto you hear in the last so many years. If you see something, say something, whatever. It's like if you see something going on, like we got to watch out for each other, especially when you talk about like, the mental health and the things we've talked about with that. Is that if you see warning signs somewhere, hey man, we all have that responsibility to watch out for our brothers and sisters if there's something going on. And it's not just the chief, like everybody,
right? And that's a whole nother side of it that we haven't talked about, but just that mental health, because you probably know the people you're around well enough. In the fire service, you just build a natural bond, and you start to get to know them, and you can tell if somebody's off, even if it's not somebody you might consider to be your closest friend. but because you have that brotherhood, sisterhood bond.
Yeah.
And in those moments, we need to be very willing to say, hey, man, you just don't seem yourself. Are you okay? At least ask that,
And that's what can be, from my experience, so uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you break your leg, I know your leg is broken.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to wonder if Steve's leg is broken. The facts are right there. Now, if you're having problems, what do I do? Because you're acting a little bit different, but it's because you're upset that you really wanted to buy that new Camaro and the bank denied you, so you're upset about it. So I have to keep a close eye on you, because what happens if I go like, Steve, man, I'm really concerned about your mental health. Are you okay?
Well,
where is that going to
yeah.
take you? Because it can be, unfortunately, in the fire service, there's still a lot of suck it up buttercup mentality going on. So you got to be pretty cautious. You shouldn't have to be, but it's kind of that, where do you go with it? Because am I going to get in trouble? Because a lot of people, if you go for mental health, you're looked at as weak.
Mm-hmm.
Well, true. So I had a situation, just a really quick situation I had at my church about a month ago, where I was doing some high school stuff, where I saw maybe an individual that maybe something was going on, and I saw it, and it was some flags went off from me, and I pulled this person off to the side, and I just away from everybody else, and all I was like is, hey, are you okay? Because just some things were said, and it just triggered. I just want to make sure you're all right. And I think, with that, I think this person was very appreciative that you took the time out to say, hey, I'm just seeing something here. I just want to make sure everything is okay. I don't think there's no harm, no foul there. I just want to make sure that everything's kosher. You're just acting a little bit different, and I just want to make sure there wasn't something there. You're all right. And they're like, oh, no, I'm fine. Okay, we know. And then if
and we could go with this topic. We could turn it, because
I was just talking about the accountability in general, like of seeing something, like not just you as a chief, but making sure all your members are accountable for each other.
Well, and they're going to know more than chief does.
Yeah,
just by nature.
Right. But you got to be sharp to pick it up on some people.
Sure,
I'll tell you that from experience, because anybody could have came up and go like, hey, how you doing? I could have told 100% of the people, hey, I'm doing great. And every one of them would have believed it.
Right.
When it was absolutely the opposite.
Some people are great at hiding stuff, right? I mean, without a doubt, you can't catch everything.
Well, but I think that's getting to know people, because before we were where we are now, it bothered me because I knew how bad a shape he was in, but he wouldn't let me in. That was before, but I knew things like Rich is when he's struggling, he'll go for a good long car ride. Like nothing for him to get in the car and just drive forever. And I used to tell him, like, hey man, I don't care if it's the middle of the night. Text me, I'll go with you. And he didn't. But when he says that, and I don't know how I figured that out, where that came up in conversation, because we were friends. We weren't like close. Like now you just would tell me that. But but I knew that, and I knew these, I knew every time he went on a car ride, like, oh, man, he's not doing well. And if you didn't know that, though, you get around him at the firehouse and he's fine. But because I knew those, you might call them tells, sign, whatever, because I knew that's how he dealt with what he was struggling through, or one of the ways,
So it's not normal for somebody to just go for a ride to the Mackinac Bridge?
For hours, no, not in the middle of the night, no. No.
Whoops.
Well, oh man, these are good. This is good topics, guys. I think it just, I think really just the lesson we get from this is, we all have a responsibility with people, and I always look at this too is, for myself, I couldn't sleep good at night knowing that I let somebody go down a road knowingly and didn't give a crap. Like I know, and maybe I'm different. I don't know. I mean,
Jesus says, "Love your neighbor as yourself."
Yeah.
Simple.
So absolutely. Well, it's funny, and it was funny. I was telling a story about my son when you were in the bathroom earlier on, and I was talking about, even like telling my son about some things about like, loving your enemies,
Mm-hmm.
pray for your enemies.
Yep.
So even if it's someone you're not a fan of, to know that I could sit here and let this person completely crash and burn, I still wouldn't sleep good because I'm like, man, that's how uncool is it? Like, that's not what God has called me to do. Even though I'm not a big fan of this individual, I still want to at least address something with him in some way. And again, if you tell me to go take a hike because you're not a fan of me, okay, well, it is. But at least I felt like
tried.
I tried. I
Right.
did my part, and that's just the way it's going to be, And so,
Time to land the plane.
It is time to land the plane.
So yeah, send us if you got more ideas on how to be accountable on these or something that you guys are doing.
Yeah, especially if there's
Let's
some in your
email.
firehouse or something like that you're
Absolutely.
as you are cultivating this, because I think this is something we need to kind of work through in that because the mental health side of thing is becoming more and more predominant, as it should. But this is probably one of those things that needs to be a part of that.
Yeah, if you're out there listening, and I think that's a great point. If there's something that you're doing at your firehouse or in life or whatever that maybe we haven't touched on, let us know so we can let people know. We can talking about it on the podcast and say, hey, this is a great idea was given to us. I think being accountable for each other, obviously first and spiritually, but also physically and what people are going through. How can we be used to help each other out, and how can, we be used to save someone from a very serious situation. So yeah, please let us know.
And where is that?
Well, by doing that, I'm so funny you asked. So by doing that, if you have any of those ideas, you want to reach out to us, or just ideas in general, or ideas in general, anything that you want to talk about, you need prayer, you just want to reach out, please go to ffifpodcast@gmail.com and leave your ideas over there. And are you gonna put something on there?
Are we having a contest?
No, you just do you.
Are we having a contest this month? This scares me.
Oh no, he's taking photos again. All right, well, hey, make sure
TJ is texting us.
Oh, is he?
He won't get this till the end of the month. TJ's texting us.
Well,
He is.
well,
Man, watch out for those mailboxes, buddy.
Also, too, if you want to make sure you follow us on your favorite podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. Also,
Your
social
favorite
media.
podcast? We should be their favorite podcast,
sorry,
bro.
Listen to your favorite podcast wherever your favorite place is to listen to podcasts.
Thank you for that. See, this is the accountability that I was talking
That's
about.
right.
Here. He's making sure when Steve cannot talk right and gets all his words jumbled up, you were accountable and put me in the right
We need
spot.
one
Thank
of those.
you so much.
What do they call it? A Teletron or whatever?
Teleprompter. I need cue cards and right in front of me. No, wherever you listen to
pictures of the crayon.
Wherever you listen to your favorite Faith Forge and Fire podcast, go over there, Spotify, and what are some other ones?
You're rambling, man. Let's land this
All right,
plane.
let's land the plane. Hey,
And don't forget,
our
Rescue Randy's favorite coffee is this Crowned Fire by Red Flannel Coffee Company.
He's alive today because he drank coffee.
That's right.
Is that really the name of it, Crown Fire?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow, I haven't gotten that one.
Yeah.
Oh,
Now,
that's good. Or go over and get some Sinner and Smoke. We claim that as our own.
I love that one. That's a good one.
Is that pretty good?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
We'll go over to redflannelcoffeeco.com, 30% off your entire order. If it's coffee order. So go over there and do that. But thank you so much for joining us for another week. We look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.